Hi, this is Adam Blaylock, and you're listening to Adam the Movie Guy. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show. Warning, the show you're about to listen to contains strong language and an unhinged host. Don't take me too serious, I'm doing a bit here, so stay the fuck off my back. Enjoy. If this shocks you, if this offends you, and you clicked on the wrong fucking podcast. Previously on Adam the Movie Guy. I left off my last episode with me going on my usual angry, unhinged, and horny rant before storming off because I need to calm the hell down before I popped a blood vessel. Now I'm back for part 2 of discussing Grindhouse and Exploitation films. Enjoy. Alright, I'm back and I settled down after taking a smoke break. Now to conclude my piece on the sexploitation subgenre with 3 recommended films. Film 1 is going to be the 1970 film Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, a satirical take on the famous 60s hit, The Valley of the Dolls. It gets pretty bizarre toward the end, so fair warning. Film 2 is going to be the 1980 sex comedy film Animal House, which, do I even need to say anything? I mean, it's a comedy classic, it has many unforgettable moments in it. And the last recommend is going to be the 1981 revenge film Miss 45, which is essentially a mix of the 2 films I Spit on Your Grave and Death Wish, since the main character named Thana, or is it Thana? Thana? Fuck it, I'm gonna go with Thana. Thana turns into a vigilante after being assaulted and goes off the deep end. It was very good, and the main character of Thana was so sympathetic and compelling, she would give Paul Kersey from Death Wish a run for his money. Well, that's all for this subgenre. I spent a lot of time on this one, way more than I planned, and I essentially tore out the damn script that I wrote. But, hey, you know what? That's the fun part. Let's move on to the next subgenre. Martial arts films. Starting off in the late 60s, but turning into what is commonly called the Kung Fu craze in the early to mid-70s, martial arts films exploded in popularity during this decade, and it really could be attributed mainly to one man, the legend himself, Bruce Lee. His influence on not just film but culture as a whole cannot possibly be overstated. His films have been referenced, remade, and parodied in so many other films, televisions, shows, literature, video games, artwork, and other forms of entertainment. The list goes on and on. The fight choreography was a game changer for action films, and it kicked open the door not only for more Asian martial arts heroes in the mainstream, but for African American martial artists during the same time period in the 1970s, which was seen in many blaxploitation films, which I will get to later. I did mention in part 1 there was a lot of crossover between the subgenres, especially when it comes to blaxploitation films. Back on topic though, Bruce Lee was so influential that not only did his films get referenced and homaged hundreds of times in other works, but the man himself was, with a lot of characters based off of Bruce Lee himself. Hell, it's literally a trope in its own subgenre called Bruceploitation, and the trope is called Bruce Lee clone. Look up any major fighting video game franchise, I guarantee you there will be a playable character based on Bruce Lee. As for the content of the subgenre itself, the hallmarks were often fast-paced action, over-the-top action sequences, sometimes with wire work to show people flying across the screen, often poorly dubbed English voiceovers, overly exaggerated sound effects when it comes to the punches and kicks, and a little sexuality thrown in from time to time. They also can get shockingly bloody and violent at times. Now on to my 3 recommendations. Recommendation 1 is the 1972 film Fist of Fury, starring Bruce Lee. Originally, I was going to say 1973's Enter the Dragon, but that was such an obvious pick, I wanted to do a little bit of a swerve there. Fist of Fury has some of the best action and drama of the Bruce Lee films, and it truly showed what he was capable of doing. Recommendation 2 is going to have to be the 2011 Indonesian action film, The Raid. This movie is nonstop action and it contains some of the best fighting I have ever seen in my fucking life. I remember showing this to my mom and we were both out of breath just watching these guys beat the shit out of each other in the movie. If you haven't seen this film at least once, then all I can say to you is watch it. You won't be disappointed with the action sequences. Trust me. Matter of fact, it even got a sequel a few years later. What the fuck was it called? Oh, The Raid 2? Oh, wow, how can I forget that? Anyway, my last recommendation is another modern pick. However, it's a loving homage to the style of 1970s martial arts films, and that pick is 2012's The Man with the Iron Fists. This movie has everything you could want in a martial arts film. Action, comedy, prostitutes who are secretly assassins, Lucy Liu looking like a goddamn goddess as the head madam for said prostitutes, Russell Crowe acting as an English cowboy gunning people down, shaking motherfuckers with a revolver knife, and eating out a prostitute in a bathtub. Dave Bautista as a superpowered villain who could literally turn his entire body bronze and beat the living hell out of people. RZA as the main hero protagonist who gets his hands chopped off and replaced with iron fists to fight said bronze Batista. And he was also the writer and director of this movie. Yes, that RZA from the group Wu-Tang Clan. Last but not least, I mentioned there's prostitutes. I just want to make sure I didn't forget to mention that and it was on the record. For some strange reason, that stuck out to me the most. In conclusion, this movie fucks and it fucks hard. Now, on to the next subgenre. Blaxploitation. Now on to the subgenre with the most soul.
Oh, yeah.
Starting off with a little bit of history. Now, I'm sure there were earlier films in the mid to late 60s, but the first film to truly kickstart the blaxploitation craze will be the 1971 film Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. Fuck, you know, that sounded a lot cooler in my head, but now that I hear it out loud, I sound like an asshole. Too late. Anyway, it was directed by and starring Melvin Van Peebles. This film was so important in giving the blaxploitation genre its start in bringing African-American heroes on the big screen. Van Peebles financed the movie primarily himself and had assistance by Bill Cosby, with Cosby giving Van Peebles a $50,000 loan to finish the film. It was shot in 19 days and Peebles couldn't even afford stuntmen or women, so he did all the stunts himself, including unsimulated sex scenes. Now, for those of you who don't know what I mean by unsimulated sex, to explain, whenever you guys see a sex scene in a movie or television show, 9 times out of 10, it's simulated, which means there's not actual penetration. The actors are just faking the thrusting and movements, and they're actually wearing barriers on their genitals as shields. Unsimulated sex is when they're actually having, well, real sex. So, Van Peebles in the movie, when he's performing in the sex show, he really is having sex with that actress. Now, the craziest part about this is that Mario Van Peebles contracted gonorrhea shooting those scenes, and he applied to the Directors Guild for Workman's Comp because he, quote, got hurt on the job. He won and he used the money to purchase more film to shoot the movie. When it came time to submit the film to the MPAA ratings board, they kept giving it an X rating instead of an R, so he couldn't advertise it on TV, which inspired the tagline for the film, Rated X by an all-white jury. And Van Peebles had this to say to the film ratings board. Should the rest of the community submit to your censorship, that is its business. But white standards shall no longer be imposed on the black community. End of quote. The man was a legend in his tribute to not just African-American pop culture, but American pop culture, period, shouldn't be overlooked. Now, I want to name one other extremely important figure in this genre, and my personal favorite, the Queen herself, Pam Grier. What can I say about this amazing woman that hasn't already been said in hundreds of discussions about blaxploitation stars? She was the face of blaxploitation for a reason. The roles she played paved the way for future African-American actresses in the entertainment industry. She had it all. She could be tough, sympathetic, threatening, insightful, intelligent, loving, all while giving you, the viewer, the biggest hard-on. Seriously, she's absolutely stunning, and when she goes topless, well, I think I could speak for everyone when I say, God damn! The woman is a senior citizen as of this video, and she could still get it.
I knocked the dust off, that was it.
Okay, horny ran over, but all jokes aside, she is an incredible actress and she deserves every single praise she is given. One of her films will be mentioned on my recommend list, but I gotta be honest with you all listening, every film of hers is a recommend. Speaking of the content of these films, it often featured a large amount of violence, racism, particularly from authority figures like cops and government stooges, aka the man.
I'm sorry I'm late, you guys. The white man was making me his bitch. What? Oh, sorry, his biatch.
Pimps, prostitutes, drug dealers, nudity, and sex. And you know, the funny thing is, although black men and women were on the big screen as the main focus, not everybody in the black community was happy, as the NAACP hated the blaxploitation genre because they believed it pushed harmful stereotypes of the black community, particularly because of the pimps and the prostitutes and the drugs that were a recurring theme in a vast majority of these movies. Now, at the end of the day, while the genre did have some rough edges, I truly believe they did more good than harm, and to back my belief is the fact that they are still looked upon fondly and paid tribute to this day in all forms of entertainment.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Now, on to my 3 recommendations. Number 1 is the 1973 film Coffee, starring Pam Grier as a vengeful sister infiltrating a drug ring and taking out the head pushers one by one. Pam Grier's performance was phenomenal, and she shows so much depth to her character, and she's not just a pretty face. Although you do get to see much more than her face in the movie, because when she's rocking this dress later on and she slowly removes it, well...
Does anyone else hear that? Yeah, and it's getting closer. And it sounds an awful lot like mine.
Number 2 is the 1972 film Blackula. William Marshall plays an African prince who is turned into a vampire by, you guessed it, Dracula, after Dracula refused to aid him in ending the slave trade and killed his wife. He's in prison for almost 200 years and is freed in the year 1972 and falls for his reincarnated wife. This film is fantastic, and the fact that it's not talked about enough in the horror genre is such a fucking crime it makes me want to put my head through a fucking door. Now, my final recommendation is going to be 2009's Black Dynamite, a loving parody of the blaxploitation genre starring Michael J. White as Black Dynamite, a Vietnam vet and former CIA operative trying to rid his community of drug dealers after his brother is killed, and he discovers a fucking ridiculous conspiracy by the man to permanently affect the black community. The movie's so freaking hilarious, and why it never got a sequel and people didn't go to see and support it in the theaters makes me want to go full fucking Jim Cornette.
Oh, God damn you, I hate you, motherfucker. I wish you'd just fucking drop over and burst into fucking flames. God damn you, just fuck you, go away and die and...
Well, that's all for the blaxploitation subgenre. Let's move on to the next. Spaghetti westerns. You know, I could actually go for some spaghetti right now, come to think of it. Now on to spaghetti westerns, a genre that came in guns blazing in the 1960s and for about 15 years took the world by storm. They were called spaghetti westerns because they were Italian-made productions. They were often shot on low budgets in various parts of southern Italy and Spain. They were released often in Italian or had Italian dubbing, but they were produced in multiple languages and casts ranging from Italian, Spanish, German, and English. Now, to explain a spaghetti western versus an old-fashioned western type of movie. The simplest, straight-to-the-point explanation, and I admit it is a oversimplification, but I don't have all fucking day to fully break it down, so here it is. A traditional or American-type western movie, more often than not, has a clear-cut hero and a clear-cut villain, as well as a clear black versus white morality with its characters and plots. Think the majority of John Wayne's roles. A spaghetti western, more often than not, has a much more anti-hero type protagonist, where they are much more morally flexible, and while they may be on the side of good, they will often do morally questionable things for not just the sake of good, but even their motives themselves may even be selfish. Think the majority of Clint Eastwood's roles. Now, while it's hard to pinpoint which was the first spaghetti western, the 1964 film A Fistful of Dollars is often credited for truly starting the wave of spaghetti westerns. Now, on to my recommendations. Number 1 has to be The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I don't even have to explain why, just watch the movie, come on now. Now, the next 2 picks are a bit of a cheat since they double as blaxploitation and a bit of the revisionist style western. However, the spaghetti is definitely strong in both of these films. Number 2 is the 1975 film, The Boss. Now, okay, for a very good reason I can't say the original title of this movie since it contains a racial slur. Just Google it and you'll see why. I mean, hey, it was the 70s, what can I say? The film stars the legend Fred Williamson as a black bounty hunter called Boss, and along with his sidekick Amos, becomes the black sheriff of an all-white town called San Miguel, with the motive of taking down a local outlaw who terrorizes the townsfolk and has the mayor do his bidding, all the while trying to make the town safer for its minority inhabitants. Basically, this movie is Blazing Saddles, but with the jokes and gags taken out of it. It's a great movie, as one of the best theme songs I ever heard in my entire life. Take a listen to it.
He's so bad, they call him boss. He's a boss. He's so bad, they call him boss. He's a boss.
Yeah, sorry about the awkward editing. I had to edit out the racial slurs. And yeah, warning, you will hear that word a lot when watching this movie and my next pick, which leads me to recommendation 3, 2012's Django Unchained, directed by the foot fetish king himself, Quentin Tarantino. Now, this movie is a loving homage to spaghetti westerns and blaxploitation, and the gunfighting in this movie is incredible. There's just blood flying everywhere like it's fucking Evil Dead, and I absolutely love it. And again, I'm going to warn you, since the main character Django is a former slave, you will see a lot of fucked up things done to African Americans in this movie. And the N-word is used so much in this movie to the point where if someone told me with a straight face Quentin Tarantino holds an infinite amount of N-word passes, I would believe them. Or another explanation would be Tarantino had looked up his DNA on Ancestry.com and found out he was partly black. You know, it probably would sound something like this.
1% black?
That's right, nigga.
You can't say that word.
Yes, I can. I have the past. I've been saying it all day. I can't stop saying it. I was singing niggas and pears in the car on the way over here.
Well, that about covers it for spaghetti westerns. Let's move on to my personal favorite. Oh, wait, hang on, everybody. I think I'm getting a call.
Do you like scary movies?
Yeah, that's right, motherfuckers. I was saving my personal favorite for last. The slasher genre. Now, I first saw the movie Halloween when I was 6 years old, and it changed my life when it came to my taste in movies. I absolutely love this genre because it's so simple on paper, but in execution it's surprisingly easy to fuck up. Let me tell you something. I have seen the biggest piles of shit in this genre because damn near every Tom, Dick, and Jane thinks that all you need is blood, a guy in a mask, and titties, and they're all set. That couldn't be further from the truth. Now, okay, yes, it's true, most slasher films contain all 3 of those elements quite often. However, the ones that are truly special and stand out have so much more to them. For starters, they have people that can actually act. Number 2, they have memorable characters that aren't just part of a body count. Number 3, their plots actually have the bare minimum of sense to them. Not that much, though. Number 4, they have a great atmosphere. Number 5, the music is actually great, especially those 1980s synthesizer scores you hear in a lot of John Carpenter flicks. And last, just a tiny splash of TNA can at least give the viewers another reason for their blood to start pumping, if you catch my drift.
Yes, baby, yeah. Yes. Oh, pussy, baby. Yes, oh, you fine motherfucker. Oh, shit. Fine motherfucker, you come here. Get that pussy. Oh, fucking let the perv watch.
Now, the start of the genre has early precursors in the form of 1960s Peeping Tom and Psycho, other early films such as Silent Night, Bloody Night in 1972, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas in 1974, and The Town That Dreaded Sundown in 1976. These are all considered proto-slasher films since they predate both the Halloween and Friday the 13th films, which are given the vast bulk of credit in truly kickstarting the genre, and a huge amount were made between the years of 1978 to 1984, which is considered the golden age for slasher films. Now, there is so much more history with the genre and its precursors, as well as its close cousin, the Italian giallo films, but I'm going to save that for its own dedicated episode. The elements of a slasher film are very simple, and you typically have a small cast of characters, often teenage or early 20s adults, getting picked off one by a mass maniac with usually, but not always, a lone survivor in the form of the final girl trope. The killer is more often than not a large-sized man and a silent threat wearing a mask or working from the shadows. Now, that's the most stereotypical slasher villain. There are multiple variants that completely buck this trend, and sometimes the villain doesn't wear a mask and even talks a lot. Hell, they even might actually crack some jokes. These films are often, but not always, very explicit in the violence department. And the characters sometimes have the archetypes you see in high school or college set films, like, the jock, the nerd, the mean girl, the weird one, the joker, the virginal sweet girl, that's often the final girl. And they often have characters indulging in drinking, drugs, and sex. The good shit.
You want a beer? Or you want to smoke some pot? Or we can have premarital sex. We love premarital sex.
Like I said, I can keep going, but I want to save this for its own dedicated series of episodes in the future. Now, on to my recommendations. Recommendation number 1, 1974's Black Christmas. This movie is such a well-made horror film that the fact that it doesn't get more recognition is fucking, oh my god. It's a goddamn crime against humanity. Oh, don't get me started. I mean, for God's sakes, this film was such a huge inspiration for Halloween, and upon rewatching it, it's impossible not to see that. Also, the killer Billy, if that's his real name, is so fucking unhinged in this movie, but in a realistic way, it's genuinely unnerving. Also, his sexual phone calls he makes to the sorority girls in the movie is shocking to this day, so I can't even imagine what they thought of those phone calls in 1974. Take a listen to one of the calls from the killer who's speaking to Margot Kidder's character, Barb. Warning, the language is filthy. So enjoy.
Fuck, baby. Fuck my juicy cock. I'll come over and you can suck it. Okay.
Listen, you pervert, why don't you go over to Lambekai? They could use a little of this.
You baby cut. You want my fat cock too?
Oh, why don't you go find a wall socket and stick your tongue in it? That'll give you a charge.
I'll stick my tongue up your pretty pussy.
You fucking creep!
I'm going to kill you.
That is one sick son of a bitch, I tell you. Now on to recommendation 2. The 1981 summer camp slasher film, The Burning. This came out hot on the heels of Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2 and got overshadowed, which is a shame because it's a fantastic slasher film. The characters are all fun and memorable, the kills are all great, and the killer is based on the Cropsey legend and named after him, and there's a lot of female nudity to make all you horny freaks out there happy. Myself included. Now on to my final recommendation. I wanted to first say that for the previous ones, I was purposely naming slasher films that are more obscure to the mainstream audience. I could have named one of the Friday the 13th movies, or Halloween, or Nightmare on Elm Street, but everyone and their mother knows those films, and it would have been way too easy to name them. For this last one, however, I'm breaking that rule because it's probably one of the most well-known slasher films to ever hit pop culture, and I just had to put it in the last spot. That film is Wes Craven's 1996 masterpiece, Scream. This movie is such a must-see that if you haven't seen it at least once in your life, I'm going to question your well-being and your sanity in particular. This brought not only the slasher genre back to its glorious form, but the horror genre itself got a much-needed kick in the ass because with the exception of a few movies, the 90s had a bit of a minor dry spell when it came to horror. Not as bad as some people say, but still present. Also, I absolutely love the fact that Ghostface calls his victims to fuck with them just like Billy in Black Christmas. Take a listen to this unforgettable moment.
You never told me your name.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
What did you say?
I want to know who I'm talking to.
That's not what you said.
What do you think I said?
Look, I gotta go.
Wait, I thought we were going to go out.
Nah, I don't think so.
Don't hang up on me.
Listen, asshole!
You listen, little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand?
That line is absolutely bone-chilling. The killer Ghostface is such a fucking icon. He stands right next to the all-time great slasher villains and holds his own, and dare I say surpasses them in some areas. Ghostface is up there with Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Candyman, Pinhead, Leatherface, and Chucky. It's not a debate. This is not a democracy. It's a dictatorship, and I am your average-looking unhinged leader. I am the big dog in this bitch, and you don't want to have problems with me, or so help me God, I'm gonna go Nancy on your sorry asses, and you're gonna catch some fucking hands. Do not fucking test me.
FBI, open up!
Sorry about that, guys. The neighbors overheard me losing my shit, and after a lengthy talk with a SWAT team, it's all good now. Well, I'm bringing this episode to an end, and I hope you all enjoyed the show, and be on the lookout for the next one. This has been Adam the Movie Guy, and until next time, bye, guys.